There's something I've learned, not from books, but from watching the quiet men in the back of the room, the ones who didn't raise their voices, the ones who weren't always the first to speak. Yet somehow, when they did speak, everyone listened. Maybe you felt it too, that tension in the air during a hard conversation. Words start flying faster, voices rise, defenses harden, and suddenly no one is listening, only reacting. You're trying to explain, to be heard, to make peace, but it feels like you're shouting through a wall of resistance. And maybe, like me once, you believed that more words would solve it, that clarity would come from pressing harder, speaking faster, explaining again, louder this time. But let me tell you the truth I wish someone had whispered to me in my younger years. Real influence isn't in the volume, it's in the vibration. There is a shift that occurs, not in the other person, but in you, when you decide to enter a moment not with urgency, but with presence. Not to win, but to understand. That shift is sacred, and it begins with energy. Speak slower, not to appear wise, but to let the weight of your words land gently. Most people don't need more information. They need more space to receive what's already being said. Lower your tone, not to dominate, but to invite, to disarm the anxious ego in front of you, to make them feel, without even realizing it, that they are safe with you, that they can let go of the armor, and let the silence carry weight. Because silence is not absence, it is an invitation. It says, I'm not here to control you, I'm here with you. That kind of silence is not empty, it is full, full of presence, full of calm, full of strength. There's a reason why Jesus often spoke in pauses, why Lincoln mastered the art of restraint, why the most magnetic speakers are not the loudest, but the most anchored. Maybe no one told you this, but you don't have to raise your voice to raise your influence. You don't have to fight to be heard. The more you carry peace within, the more others will soften in your presence. I remember once sitting across from a man whose anger could fill a room. He was used to people pushing back, defending themselves, escalating. But when he hurled his accusations at me, I didn't react. I breathed. I let silence answer first. And then I spoke, not in haste, not in defense, but with clarity, low and slow. And do you know what happened? He calmed down. Not because I had better arguments, but because I refused to match his storm. I had become, without even trying, a mirror. And in that mirror, he saw himself more clearly. That is what emotional leadership looks like. That is what spiritual strength feels like. Not noise, not haste, not the need to prove, but presence. Maybe today you are tired of trying to explain yourself, tired of conversations that end in misunderstanding, tired of being the one who always bends, who always breaks, who walks away feeling unseen. And maybe, just maybe, you've tried everything but this. The energy shift, the stillness before the words, the decision to speak like someone who carries light, not noise. If so, then this message is for you. When you lower your tone, something remarkable happens, not just in the other person, but in you. You stop performing. You stop convincing. You begin connecting. Because the voice that flows from stillness carries more power than 1,000 rehearsed words. It does not shout over resistance, it walks around it, like a river shaping the rock. And I must confess, this didn't come naturally to me. I used to believe that persuasion was about strength, charisma, control. I studied rhetoric, practiced speeches, polished arguments. But in real life, especially in relationships, it's not arguments that change people. It's energy. And energy is felt long before words are heard. People may forget what you said. They may disagree with your point, but they will never forget how your presence made them feel. If your energy is tense, hurried, and desperate, even the kindest words will feel like pressure. But if your energy is calm, clear, and rooted, even difficult truths can be received as love. And that, my friend, is the art of sacred communication. It's not just what you say, it's how you carry it. What if I told you that the next time you're facing conflict, your first duty is not to win, but to regulate your own nervous system, to breathe, to settle your thoughts, to lower your tone, not to surrender, but to take the reins of your inner world? Because only when your energy is anchored can your words become medicine. There's a reason ancient wisdom speaks of the tongue as a fire. Words can destroy or heal. They can escalate or de-escalate. They can divide or draw near. But only when spoken from inner peace do they carry the grace that disarms. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone truly listened to you? Because they felt safe in your energy. When was the last time you listened that way? I've watched broken marriages begin to thaw with one shift in tone. I've seen rebellious children soften, not from being yelled at, but from being seen and heard with patience. I've watched strangers open up simply because someone was calm enough to receive instead of react. This is not about technique. This is about who you're becoming. And here's the truth most people avoid. If your words are rooted in fear, frustration, or control, they will never land in someone else's soul the way you hope. You might get compliance, but never connection. You might win the point, but lose the person. True leadership, true influence, begins not with what comes out of your mouth, but what fills your spirit. So the next time you speak, begin with silence. Ground yourself. Speak from that grounded place. Not to be clever, but to be clear. Not to prove, but to invite. Not to dominate, but to elevate. This is how you shift the energy in a room without ever raising your voice. This is how people begin to listen, not because they have to, but because something in your presence made them want to. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. And presence, real presence, starts with humility. The humility to pause before you speak. The humility to see the person, not just the point. The humility to surrender the need to win and instead ask, what needs to be healed here? There's something sacred in that kind of listening, something divine. Because when you offer presence, not pressure, when you speak from a calm heart rather than a hurried mouth, you become a vessel for something greater than you. Call it love, call it wisdom, call it God. But whatever name you choose, it lives in stillness. It breathes in patience. And it speaks not just through words, but through energy. Maybe you've never thought of your voice as a sanctuary before, but it can be. When you choose to slow down, when you choose to let silence lead, when you choose to carry peace even in the face of misunderstanding, you are no longer just communicating, you are healing. Healing generations of reactive speech, breaking cycles of emotional violence, offering what so few people in this world have ever truly known, the feeling of being heard without being judged. That is a rare gift. And like all sacred gifts, it begins in secret. In the secret moments when you catch yourself getting agitated and choose to breathe instead of burst. In the quiet seconds before you respond, when you surrender the need to defend and simply say, "I hear you." In the trembling aftermath of an argument, when you return not with shame or blame, but with open-hearted strength. This is what emotional maturity looks like. This is what spiritual discipline feels like. Not stoicism, not silence for silence's sake, but the fierce, tender power of intentional presence. The truth is, most of the people you'll speak with today are not listening with their ears. They're listening with their hearts. And hearts do not open to force. They open to safety, to softness, to grace. You don't have to agree with someone to make them feel safe. You don't have to share their view to honor their dignity. And you certainly don't have to compromise your truth to carry it with gentleness. That is the shift. That is the transformation. And maybe, just maybe, that is your next chapter. Not louder, but clearer. Not faster, but deeper. Not more clever, but more compassionate. From this day forward, you walk a new path. A path where your voice is not a weapon, but a wellspring. Where your words don't force doors open, they invite souls in. Where your presence becomes a sanctuary, not just for others, but for yourself. You're allowed to be that kind of person. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to speak with peace and still be heard. Because the most powerful voice in the room is not the one shouting. It's the one so full of clarity, it makes the noise around it kneel in reverence. There's a verse I carry close to my heart. It's not from a motivational book or a modern self-help guru. It comes from the quiet wisdom of Scripture. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. Proverbs 15:1. I've seen this truth unfold too many times to dismiss it. I've seen marriages on the verge of collapse take their first breath of healing, not through brilliant counseling, but through one soft, honest answer. I've watched hardened leaders drop their armor, not because they were out-argued, but because someone finally spoke to them with soul instead of ego. There is something holy in that. And it's available to you. Yes, you, the one who has been misunderstood. Yes, you, the one who has had to raise your voice just to feel seen. Yes, you, the one who thought gentleness was weakness and strength was found in volume. There is another way. It's quieter, it's slower, but it reaches farther than you ever imagined. Because when your presence carries stillness, people lean in, not to argue, but to understand. That is how revolutions of the heart begin, not with shouting matches, but with sacred space. You don't need to be the loudest voice at the table. You need to be the clearest channel. And clarity doesn't demand noise. It requires depth. So here is my invitation to you, my friend. Let today be the day you stop fighting to be heard. Let today be the day you speak not to impress, but to bless. Let today be the day your words become fewer, but fuller. Because when you begin to speak from that place, you will notice something miraculous. People won't just hear you, they'll feel you. They won't just agree, they'll open. They won't just nod, they'll remember. You will become not a speaker of words, but a transmitter of truth. And in a world that is starved for authenticity, that is more powerful than any podium. This is not about mastering conversation. It's about embodying peace. It's about becoming the kind of person who can walk into a storm and still remain the calm. You don't need a title for that. You don't need approval for that. You only willingness. So pause. Breathe. Lower your tone. Speak slower. And let the silence speak with you. Because in that silence, there is God. There is wisdom. There is power. And when you learn to carry that silence with honor, you will never again need to raise your voice to be heard. You have become the message. Let your life be the voice that heals. Let your words echo stillness. Let your energy do the talking. And let that talking change everything.